I will tell you the first story I ever wrote as a bard. It is from the series Kingdom, so it's the first Kingdom one, Joseph Sorrow. All the stories have different main characters, and this one is about that young boy. Story series goes about the same kingdom but different events that are somehow connected. It's accidentally happened that it was connected. But yeah, so let us begin. Joseph Sorrow. In the old kingdom there lived a boy named Joseph. He was not older than 10 years old, with jet black hair, taller than his other peers. He didn't have many friends. You could say he had none friends, because everybody in the village and around it knew about Joseph's family. His father was a chimney sweep. He didn't have many work to do. He didn't have much money, because chimneys needed to be swept once or twice a year, and in his village there were only 12 houses. So he usually traveled to other villages to look for work. His mother was a seamstress, but because of her great love for meat, she couldn't sew anymore. Her fingers constantly trembled. She got needles stuck in her fingers constantly, and also her stitches were not neat, nice, or beautiful anymore. Joseph's clothes, despite his mother was a seamstress, but it was always torn. His shoes had holes, and because of that, many children at school bullied him. The older students would even abuse him physically and verbally. Joseph could read, but he was reading very slowly because he never did his homework, and for that he constantly got beaten by the belt from the nuns. He tried to explain it, make excuses that he didn't have time, but the nuns, they always said the one thing, that studying is his main responsibility. But that was not true. Joseph's main responsibility, while his father was away, was to work and bring some money to the household. His job was hard. He was working at the local stables, and he was digging up horse manure and bringing it to the village's compost site. In that compost site, all villagers' waste was brought to use as fertilizer later on. And the money was small, and even then Joseph couldn't keep them, because every time he returned home, his mother took it and bought herself some meat. Joseph tried to hide it once, but his mother knew how much she's making, and that night she beat him with the belt. School where Joseph was studying was in another village. You have to reach it through walking through the road by the forest. Everybody was forbidden to enter the forest, especially the children, because there lurked dangerous creatures inside. But anyway, the school was run by 3 nuns: Sister Gertrude, Sister Martha, and the cruelest of them all, tallest, oldest, gray-haired, a bit scrawny, mean, strict-faced kind of woman, Sister Angela, who hated children very much, but she had to work at school, and her favorite pastime was beating children with the belt, and Joseph was her favorite target because, well, let's be honest, he never studied, he never did his homework. When Joseph's father, Pavel, was at home, Joseph could breathe a little bit more. His mother was afraid of Pavel, so she didn't drink that often. But Pavel was not happy man. Almost always he looked with the dead eyes and looking somewhere in the distance. One day, Joseph asked Pavel, "Dad, can I come with you to work? I'm still bad at school." And he said, "No, you cannot. Your main responsibility is to study, so you could bring honor to the family while becoming a priest. But After so many years studying in the school with nuns, Joseph didn't want to do anything with them. Anything with the church anyway. So life continued until spring came. When spring came, Pavel left home looking for work. At the same night that Pavel left, Joseph's mother started to drink again, shouted at her son for him to go earn some money. And after a couple of weeks of studying, working hard, and also being belittled and shouted on by his mother, there was a knock at the door. "Open up!" shouted the mother. When Joseph opened the door, there was a patrolman standing there. The duties of the patrolman were simple. He had to patrol the roads between the villages, protecting them from robbers and also maintaining peace in the villages. Joseph knew this patrolman. He was a scruffy, a bit large man with handlebar mustaches and very friendly person. And he says, "I'm sorry, Joseph, but your father fell from the roof and, well, gravedigger will bring his body tomorrow morning." That was tragic news for the family, and that night, in his house, all village could hear shouting and screaming. His mother tossed empty meat bottles at the wall and drank the full ones, cursing on Joseph, saying that he's a bad son because that he should have go to work with his father instead of staying at school where he didn't learn anything anyway. After a few hours of belittling and feeling bad, Joseph decided to run away. He slammed the doors and ran as fast as he could, while still hearing his mother shouting at her from the distance, what a terrible son he was. After running for some time, Joseph didn't know how long or where he was running. He finally stopped and looked around. Then he saw that he was in the middle of the forest, where nobody's supposed to go, nobody's supposed to come, because there were dangerous creatures lurking around. He never went into the forest before because, well, he was afraid. Even then, the larger kids tried to push him in the forest or say, "You're a coward, let's go," and they still, children snuck into it and played. Joseph always ran home. That's probably one of the reasons why nobody liked him, because everybody thought he's a coward. But now, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the forest, so dense that you couldn't see even the slightest light coming from the moon, Joseph stood alone. He thought, maybe I should try to go the same way I came. I will reach my house. So he went, listened to every branch, every leaf flickering in the dark, his heart pounding. Then he heard rustling in the bushes and suddenly stopped. Is there a creature out there? Will he attack me? Thought Joseph. He looked around. "Run, you fool, run!" Joseph shouted himself in his mind, but out of fear he was paralyzed. He couldn't move. Then he heard rustling in the other bushes other side. His eyes started to flicker from one side to another, waiting for what would happen, but still couldn't able to move. Was there a beast going around him, or there maybe was one more than one? "Run!" But Joseph still couldn't move. Suddenly, in the forest, everything went quiet. You couldn't hear the branch breaking. You couldn't hear leaves flickering. You couldn't even hear the wind. was scared. Why? Were the beast gone? Was he still there in the silence looking at him? And finally he felt that he can run, move, and he started to run, jumping over few fallen branches, ducking under the tree once. He felt pain in his left cheek. Apparently he slashed his cheek, and the hot, sticky blood was running through his face, making it warm and extremely unpleasant. And then he stopped. In a distance, when the trees became less dense, he finally could see a little bit moonlight. But that didn't calm Joseph down, because he saw in between two trees a dark, tall silhouette of the human. It was wearing a cloak and didn't move. Neither came closer to Joseph, nor ran when he saw it. Joseph froze again. Who's there? But only he could say it in his mind. He couldn't say it out loud. No. The figure just pointed into one direction. With his long skeleton fingers. Well, it seemed the silhouette felt like it was a skeleton because it was so thin and long, showing the way. For the moment, Joseph looked at the way where the figure was showing him, losing the eyesight from the figure, and when Joseph turned back, there was no one there. Should I trust it and go where it was pointing, or should I run into unknown, into the other way? Because as I was taught, never trust the stranger. It was the hardest decision in life that Joseph had to make on the spot. But suddenly he felt a warm, firm, strong hand on his shoulder. And he thought, it's him, it's that figure. For some reason quickly he thought maybe in those bushes before, where he thought it was a monster, a creature of the woods, wasn't the creature at all, but was this figure leading him on. But for what purpose? Joseph slowly turned around, and he was surprised what he saw. It was Sister Angela, the nun from the school that hated Joseph the most. But what she's doing in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, where nobody supposed to go? Why is she here? How did she knew that I was here? Sister Angela, why are you here? I heard you shout through the woods, and I decided to come to help you. It was strange, Joseph thought. One thing he didn't do was shout. He was trying to be as quiet as the mouse. But Sister Angela, I wasn't shouting. It wasn't you who shouted out of his lungs, saying, "Help, help, I'm lost." No, Sister Angela, it was not I. Joseph could see how her face became extremely serious and yet a little bit panicky. Well then, let us go. So they walked quickly together. Joseph calmed a little bit down because finally he was with the adult. He knew even if he hated her the most, at least he knew who she was. And suddenly they heard the scream of a young boy. "Help! Help me, please! Help!" Joseph looked at Sister Angela and she just shook her head, indicating, let's not go there. We do not know what's happening. The screams were getting closer to them. Joseph stepped one foot front, leaving Sister Angela standing behind him, and screams of help, please somebody, was getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. But Joseph turned around to ask Sister Angela, what should we do? Should we run? Should we what? But Sister Angela was no longer there. She was gone, like the mist in the wind. There was silence again, no more screaming, just Joseph standing somewhere in the woods. Was she even real? Joseph thought. Maybe I was hallucinating. But no, I felt her hand touching me. We thought she must have. But then where she's gone? Joseph heard the shout again, and he just started to run. After a few minutes, he couldn't run anymore. Out of fear, he just cuddled up by the tree, hearing the shouts of help, of pleading. Closer and closer. He was afraid. He was scared. Then realized suddenly that all along it was he who screamed. It wasn't some mysterious voice. It was he sitting here by the tree, screaming. There was no Sister Angela. He just imagined. He was cold. He was hungry. He was scared. He closed his eyes. The lightness like clouds took over his body. And young Joseph never woke up again. Thank you for listening. This was Bard of Aldershire with the story of Kingdom Joseph Sorrows. Thank you, and see you later again.